welcome back to another episode. My name is Yennefer, and I am back today delivering you all a recorded video. I have so much to say. I'm so full all week. I've been doing a lot of reading and just what I call researching. A lot of YouTube University, a lot of Wikipedia and books on my bookshelf. And I'm continuing the conversation started last week. And this week, the topic is the God in your mind versus the God of your heart. And I got here after contemplation because I thought, I'm gonna, what if I piss a lot of people off? What if I create enemies with the things that I say or the questions that I'm asking? And I thought about myself, maybe 20 years ago, I would never even allow myself to consider some of the things that I consider now. But then I thought to myself, if there was a conspiracy or some plot to conceal the true God of love, wouldn't that God want and expect us to seek it out with all of our hearts, minds, and soul? And I thought the answer to that question was an obvious yes. And even if I'm wrong, right? Or even if this is wrong, I thought, well, a loving God would understand and see in my heart that I am seeking the truth. I am seeking the truth. And so I thought about this. I thought about a lot of things, just about seeking truth out wholeheartedly. And it was probably during COVID, actually. It was during COVID when I came to a conclusion, and I was at peace with it. And that conclusion was, I do not believe the God of the Bible or the Old Testament is the creator God. It was just in me. Like it. And also growing up, I never resonated or felt a connection with, yes, Israel in the Bible, but Israel across the waters, never felt any type of connection or resonance with them. And the more I think about it, I'm like, why would we identify ourselves through the gods of another people? It's like we really have had to grow into our true identity. And at the source of this conundrum is a lack of knowing our true identity. So I understand. And so what has been revealed to me? What has been revealed to me is that there has been an erasure of the true divine family. The true divine family, they were godly. They were not of this world. And I saw the erasure of the true divine family on a mountain, on the side of a mountain. And in this valley, the people had moved in and built their neighborhoods right in the midst, in this valley at the bottom of this mountain where this erasure happened. And I was being led behind. I was being led. I had entered in, there were gates, and I was being led in to with the intent of going behind this neighborhood, so to speak, that had been built there, where these divine beings had been erased. Their existence had been erased from this mountain. And that's what was shown to me this week. So with all of my research in books and online, this is what was revealed to me through divine insight. And so I wanted to bring this broadcast and this channel and this podcast back to its original intent and purpose. And this broadcast, the Fifth Iteration podcast, was created as an outlet to share and channel divine insight that comes forth and to and through us through our crown chakras, and in which we're able to interpret through our first eye, aka third eye, aka the pineal gland. And last week I mentioned that I remember saying I mentioned my theories, and I mentioned, what I feel I know things are, but I tried to go in and show you the research first, and I realized that's a little backwards as far as the original intent and purpose of this channel, which is about divine insight. So what I will do from this point forward is share with you what has been revealed to me through divine insight. And then we will go and look for the evidence to back that up and the research that I find online and things like that. So that's the way that I want to go about this. And so what we're going to get into today is the God in your mind versus the God of your heart. And ultimately, when you speak of God, are you still speaking of the same God? So that's our introduction, and let's get started. Okay, so we're going to pick up here. So in the past weeks, we have referenced the book, The Great Cosmic Mother, and particularly the portion referring to Ashera. And so it says in Deuteronomy 16:20, "You shall not plant any tree as an Ashera beside the altar of God." The Ashera was a Neolithic goddess, and then her other names, or the symbol of the goddess. It was conventionalized or stylized tree, perceived as she, and planted therefore at all altars and holy places. And then it goes on. The Ashera represented the goddess as Eritu, the green one, the Neolithic mother, daughter of all vegetation, of agricultural knowledge and abundance. Yahweh's absolute hostility to the Ashera was the political hostility of the nomadic pastoral Hebrew people, or their priesthood at least, to the settled matriarchal cultures and their goddess beliefs. It became a psychological hostility to the entire living earth, doctrinalized in the biblical text. And then she goes on with those texts. So I have read this piece before from the book. And so last week when we were referencing the book When Giants Walk the Earth, it further pointed out the mention of Ashera in the Bible 40 times. And then it goes on to talk about the archaeological discoveries of inscriptions and Israel have even confirmed the attempt of Israelites to syncretize Asherah into their religions as Yahweh's consort. And so that really kicked off our conversation about the subversion of gods and the syncretism and how they sync the energies, and a new god comes in, takes over the old god's place because they got rid of the old god, but they might keep certain aspects of the old god, or maybe even change their name to the old god so that the people think that they can keep worshiping, right? Even though, so the people don't know. So they move in, take over the name or aspects, but that original essence is no longer there. So that's what we talked about last week, and all of these different, the Dagon, because originally the conversation last week was about this God dog connection, and we're going to get back to that because some more things are coming to light, and we will eventually get to the answer of that question, but we have to address some other things first. And so after all of this, I started my research into Ashera. And wow, you guys may be further along in this process than me, but this is new to me. So I put Ashera in the YouTube search, and wow, so much came up. And so there was all of this talk about the divine family. And so I came to these conclusions with my own thinking, but it was refreshing to see that so many others have asked the same questions and have gone on to further answer the question, to do research. So there's tons of documentaries online that you can watch. But this started the beginning of my digging just with the term Ashera. And so I started to come across this repetition of a divine family. And so we know from the authors of The Great Cosmic Mother, from their perspective, there was a creator that existed that was primarily viewed as feminine in prehistoric times. And then over time, there has been a subversion of that to the point that entire feminine essence and energy has been omitted from our viewpoints of God, to the point that now the three big religions refer to God as a he. So from their perspective, the authors of Great Cosmic Mother, that's how they're telling the story. So as I began to research on YouTube, those that have done research from the three main religions, they're saying that there was a divine family that existed. A father God, a mother goddess, and then a son child originally, right? This is how far I've gotten in my research. Now, as I was listening to other people, they mentioned that there was a daughter, but I haven't gotten that far yet. And in what was revealed to me, I can't say that I saw a daughter on that. I just saw three. So now, this is where it gets very, 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 very dramatic, to say the least, and sensational, to say the most. There was some stuff going on, and but we have to also look at things in the context of perhaps they weren't human like we are human. So a lot of things were written poetically, and so our interpretation may be a little different from actually what took place. So let's move on to the next portion. So apparently there was this divine family, a father god, a mother goddess, and they had children. Okay. But first there was a son. Those children had names, some of which are listed in the Bible, but the Bible kind of leaves out the details, a lot of the details, or it's just a little convoluted because it's hard to tell who's who. But actually this was a family and they were related. And so this is what I started to find out when I went to Wikipedia and put some of these names in to start to see some connections. So there were some connections to some famous stories that we know, like the Greek gods. So there are equivalents of these figures in Greek mythology and also Egyptian mythology. So it makes you wonder a lot. Alrighty, so what you see on the screen here are my notes, but I began to kind of take note of this divine family story that I was seeing repeated in different traditions. So up at the top, you see the Greek equivalent, then the Egyptian, then in the middle, this is Sumerian, which is connected to the Bible, and then the other biblical associations. So in a nutshell, I'm going to tell you what happened, okay? Just in common talk, I'm going to tell you what happened, and then I will include where I'm getting this information from. So according to the story that I've gathered, there was a mother and father connection, marriage, mother, father, God, and goddess. They had a son and they had children. There was rivalry amongst these children. One in particular decided to unalive or castrate their father. Okay, so there's a story that Kronos castrated Uranus. Set killed Osiris and scattered the parts, but the only part that couldn't be found was the phallus. And El, okay, according to Wikipedia, El killed his father, the sky god. And what I want to point out here in the middle, where I have Anu and Kamarbi, these names are associated with Sumerian deities, but they have equivalents in these other cultures. So Anu was a father, and he was killed by Kamarbi. Okay, according to Wiki, this deity or this entity named Kamarbi, and it involved biting off or cutting off of the genitals. And when I did further research on who this Kamarbi character is, it begins to connect back to some of the names in the Bible. And I will put that up on the screen here momentarily. And then the same thing with El and the sky god. And so El is said to be the husband of Ashera. And then they're said to be the parents of Baal, Yamm, and Mot, amongst others. But the thing that starts to get confusing is I feel like they would double up on the names, because in one instance, El is the father, and then in another, he's referred to as the son that killed the father. So I was not able to get much clarity on that, because Wikipedia, and if you go in and look yourself, you'll see how that happens. But the main point that I want to make in this segment is that there is a repeated story of a divine husband-wife pair, or a king husband and wife pair, king and queen, that ruled and that were benevolent, but that the king was overthrown by a jealous relative. Either this was a godson, an actual son, or a brother. And we see this story repeated in a lot of major movie themes, right? When I started to think about this, I'm like, oh my goodness, is this not the Lion King story? Is this similar to what happened in Star Wars with Darth Vader? And is this similar to Dune and the Harkonnens and all of that? And this story repeats itself, right? So it's obvious that this is some sort of, these are archetypal energies that could be mimicking the actual story that happened at some point, or the origin story of religions, because it's repeated in so many different cultures and religious histories. And so what I wanted to do at this point is to really try to figure out who's who. And so, with the ultimate question being, who is the God of the Old Testament? And whose name will be on the screen. So, is the God of the Old Testament the Creator God? I want to bring things back to the essential question of today's video, and that is the God in your mind the same as the God of your heart? Because this was the final question that I asked myself, because I think that the God of our hearts is the God of love, because we want to be connected, be thankful for, worship and praise the God that loves us, protects us, who made us, who we desire to direct our path in the best way, so that we can live, our highest good, our highest expression. That's the God that's in our heart. And I don't know if that will ever change, right? I think where the issue comes in is how we think of God in our minds, and then making those things congruent, making those things the same, and also finally making how we speak of God, all in line, all three of those in line. I think that how we feel about God, I mean the God that's in our heart. And then when we think about who God is, I think we are off. We have two different gods in those places. I think that what keeps us is the God in our heart, and how we feel, what we know to be true about our God, our Creator, is that we are loved. I think that we know that without a doubt. But when we think of God and we try to give God an identity, and we think and we refer back to a religion, perhaps how we were raised or what we were taught, what we learned in Sunday school or Wednesday night Bible study, or maybe what we just haven't learned at all and what we have just accepted as truth without actually knowing, investigating, and knowing that without a doubt. The God in our minds, I think it's okay, because I think that we're all on a journey to uncovering the truth. And I feel like it's inevitable that we will get there. So I'm not worried. I feel like all of our questioning and investigating and researching and this new age of information is just the manifestations of us coming into the truth of what the Bible speaks of as a return of Christ. I think these are the manifestations of that. I also think, based on what I've watched, what I feel in my heart, I feel that when Jesus, the story of Jesus, right? Okay. Now, we will have to discuss his name and all of that, because there's a lot that goes into that. Okay. But the story of Jesus and what he said when he spoke of his Father, I do not believe he was talking about, I believe that who he was speaking of may not be the obvious. Okay, without me saying anything directly. But you guys catch my drift, and if you don't, just let me know. But the God of the true God in our hearts must be reconciled with the God in our minds and who we think God is. So I would encourage you to seek your own revelations, seek your own answers, do your own research. I have included 3 of the videos I felt like posed some really significant information. I will link these in the description in case you want to watch them for yourself. But I feel like there are several indicators to what's really going on. I think that because everything in nature exists in female, male, and God created us in their image. So I think that it's safe to say that there was a feminine and masculine essence to God, whether they were a duo or it was a group of beings that are collectively God. There is definitely a feminine component that was purposely omitted and left out of the Old Testament for a reason. And I think, the great cosmic mother lays out very loudly the reasons why, amongst many other authors, why the feminine was omitted purposely, which reminds me of another documentary that I came across. I'll have to find it, but basically it was showing how there's been a suppression, like women weren't allowed to sing certain songs. Like, it is deep. the levels that were gone to, the levels that were reached in the effort to suppress the feminine aspects of God. I think that what is important, if we look at the manifestation of our world and the imbalance, there's so much war and killing, and the list goes on. It lacks a lot of love. We're lacking nurturing. We're lacking the things that the feminine energy would entail and that would bring to the equation. So I do truly believe the more we all start to embrace more of a balanced perspective of God, not just in the masculine sense, but also in the feminine sense, we will see manifestations in this world align and just be better overall. But the fruits of having the viewpoints of a solely masculine God haven't been beneficial. It's like the world is going to, double hockey sticks. So that is the message. That's what I want to say. I would love to hear your thoughts and your questions about today's broadcast. Please be sure to check out the other 7 channels. 7channels.tv has all information for all 7 energy centers, all 7 chakras, all 7 wheels to progress your consciousness